There was a time in my life where I was reading a lot of manga. The way I got there was very spontaneous. I bought the first volume of Attack on Titan one day from Five Below, and my life was changed. In this video, I'm going to show you how easy it is to read manga, the best places to start reading it, suggest the best etiquette in terms of spending and reading, explain the differences between manga and anime, and give you suggestions for what to read while comparing it to well-known things for you to see if it will fit your personal vibe. This is a very hot debate among fans of the overall comic medium. Comics are very much a convoluted medium. For example, Batman by himself has 8,436 comic issues, but he appears in 23,282 comic issues. There are different runs that you can start with, like New 52 or Rebirth, but you're not going to be getting the full Batman story, nor would you want to read that many comics either. Unless you're reading an Image comic story, you have to face the fact that you will never get the whole story on a certain popular character like Spider-Man or Superman. With manga, you just have to start with Volume 1. Want to read Chainsaw Man? Go to a bookstore or comic shop and pick up Volume 1, bro. Attack on Titan? It's there. Dragon Ball? There. One Piece? There's a lot, but I guarantee you they will have at least Volume 1. I like to refer to Image Comics as American manga, because all you have to do with something like The Walking Dead is start at issue 1, similar to manga with Volume 1 or Chapter 1. They're probably the best American publisher when it comes to keeping all their series in print, as you can still buy the first volumes of Spawn or Invincible today, and they are constantly reprinting them into different size formats. There are spin-offs to these manga series like Attack on Titan No Regrets, for example, but you don't really have to read these. They usually just provide a little more context on a character. There are other spin-offs like Attack on Titan Before the Fall that follow a completely different story and don't really need to be read at all. There are also light novels that usually do the same as the spin-offs, but in a novel format. Sometimes the publishers even adapt the light novels into a full manga format, which I personally love. The thing about manga is that it is a consistent storyline that is usually written and drawn by the same creator for its whole lifetime. Comics usually can't keep the same artist for 6 issues, or the same writer for 12, while Japanese creators keep writing and drawing their comics all the way through. Only a few actual comic creators have done this. The most notable example I can think of being the Wolverine Weapon X story by Barry Windsor Smith. Now I'm going to give you some recommendations based on different genres that I personally read. So that means no smut. Go to a different video if you want that. The first place I would start with, so you get a good idea of what manga is all about, is One Piece. Specifically, I would start out with the first volumes in one book that only costs around $15. This is about half the money you would normally pay for each volume, which is around $10. The reason I picked One Piece is because it has all the usual tropes for manga and really gives you an idea of whether or not you can dig it. It establishes a main character, their goals, their place in the world, and shows the world itself. The first 3 volumes are usually very good at world building and character development. The main character in One Piece is Monkey D. Luffy, a kid who vows to be the king of the pirates and to find the One Piece. Luffy ventures out towards the Grand Line and builds up his crew to look for the One Piece. The series basically follows all of their adventures leading up to finding the One Piece, which they still haven't found yet. There are many moments that I don't want to spoil if you do decide to read this one, but that is the general gist of things. Not all manga titles are in this form, but most of them are. The best American thing I can really compare One Piece to is Pirates of the Caribbean, as they both feature pirates and both feature characters that you meet along the way in the story. One Piece may be goofy at times, but the emotional bits hit like a truck. The same can be said for most of the titles I will discuss today. For drama, I would definitely recommend Attack on Titan. The story is about Eren Yeager, a kid who, you guessed it, has a dream, and that dream is to become a part of the Survey Corps. And what do the Survey Corps do? They venture beyond humanity's walls, mapping out new territory, and help plan out the expansion of the walls. They are also equipped to defend themselves against giant humanoid man-eating titans. There is also a lot more to the story, as it is very mysterious and unfolds over all 34 volumes. I think the best thing I can compare Attack on Titan to is Squid Game. The deeper you go into the story, the more you find out. For action and comedy, I have 3 separate picks: Chainsaw Man, Sakamoto Days, and One Punch Man. Chainsaw Man is my personal favorite manga series of all time. Basically, imagine if anything you can think of was a monster. Well, in this, they're called devils, and the more that people are afraid of a certain thing, that particular devil's power grows. So for example, something like the cucumber devil would be pathetic and not dangerous at all, while something like a spider devil would be quite the formidable opponent. The story focuses mainly on a homeless devil hunter named Denji, whose father owed a large debt to the Yakuza, and after he died, Denji was left to earn the sum. The weapon that Denji uses to hunt the devils is Pochita, his pet chainsaw devil. One day, to save Denji's life, Pochita fuses with his heart, making him the new Chainsaw Devil, thus transforming him into Chainsaw Man. With this new power, he is exploited by the devil hunters and used to track down other, more dangerous devils. It's just the perfect blend of action, emotion, and comedy. It has that down-to-earth type stuff that I just love. Tatsuki Fujimoto is a god among mangakas. The best thing that I can compare this series to is something like a mix between both Taika Waititi and James Gunn's work. It has that odd, down-to-earth emotion and that perfect blend of action and comedy that Guardians of the Galaxy has. Moving on to Sakamoto Days. This one is about an ex-hitman named Taro Sakamoto, who has left that life to be with his wife. He owns a convenience store and is a genuine family man, but don't let his soft appearance fool you. He still is the badass he always was. Just imagine if John Wick was a family man and the tone was much lighter. The third and final one on the action comedy list is One Punch Man. The story follows a man named Saitama who very extensively trained his body to the point where he can defeat anyone with one punch. He also gained an array of different powers, like super speed and invulnerability. The only downside to this is the increased stress he put on his body caused him to go bald. This is the only book that I have ever read that actually made me laugh out loud while reading. I definitely recommend this one, as I think it's the funniest one here, but also because the art is some of the best in the game. Going to straight action, Kagurabachi is probably the best choice. It is also a very new manga as well, coming out in 2023. It follows a kid named Chihiro, whose dad was a weaponsmith who created magical swords. He was murdered by the Hishaku, a group of criminal sorcerers. So basically the story is Chihiro going for revenge on all 10 of these guys. The action and the art is spectacular. Just think of the tone of John Wick with magical swords. And finally, the best recommendation for horror manga is Junji Ito. More specifically, I will recommend Uzumaki. The imagery of a town in Japan slowly getting taken over by spirals is a crazy concept, and the whole time reading you will wonder how someone could even come up with a story like this. Junji Ito's inspiration comes from plenty of different horror artists, but I find that his more simple inspirations are the best. For instance, one of his strangest stories is about a group of teens that find a jar of honey that when you eat it is the best thing that you've ever tasted, but you have a small chance of getting smashed by an unknown force. His inspiration for that story was just the question, what if humans were mosquitoes? I love that kind of stuff. Very simple concept, but also complicated enough to have many people not make the connection. A lot of his stories feature exaggerated phobias like sharks, or creepy takes on totally normal things like dreams, balloons, and records. I personally think he's the best in the business when it comes to horror. I own almost all of his work on hardcover. I highly recommend him if you are into horror. Even if you aren't into manga, you will probably enjoy his work. Overbuying and overreading are the things that I am most guilty of when I'm immersing myself in the world of manga. I have toned it down quite a lot, and I will be showing you different methods of doing that here. Back when I started, I would just stick to Attack on Titan, until I saw they sold manga at Target. So I picked up Chainsaw Man Volume 1 and One Punch Man Volume 1. This is the problem with doing this. You will fill up your backlog quicker than you can get through what you're reading. It will also take focus off of what you're currently reading. I would say the best rule of thumb when it comes to overbuying and overreading is to limit yourself to buying 1 or 2 volumes a week, depending on your budget, and just stick to one series. Let's say you're reading Dragon Ball, but you really want to start reading Chainsaw Man next. Take solace in the fact that Chainsaw Man will be in the bookstore waiting for you, and that it isn't going out of print like comics do. Do yourself a favor and finish Dragon Ball, and then start Chainsaw Man. This will save you a lot of stress, and it is the overall better thing to do in this situation. Another common mistake is not doing your research. My best example of this is when I started reading Jujutsu Kaisen. I figured, hey, it has a lot of fans, so it must be something I will like. Turns out I found it really boring. I couldn't get much into it. Do not fall into this trap. Do your research, maybe watch a bit of the anime, since anime and manga follow very closely together. See if you would be interested, then go for it. Anime is a good way to gauge enjoyment in a manga, which brings me to my next topic, anime parody. Like me, you might wonder why Japan has better adaptations of their comics than America does. But when you think about it, it's because the publishers let their creators keep the rights to the series. Once again, Image is the first and only big comic publisher in America that actually does this. which is why Invincible is such a popular and successful adaptation. It follows the comic very closely. Almost all anime do the same thing, though there are episodes, for instance, like in One Piece, where it features filler that wasn't even in the manga. But other than that, it follows the story closely. It is also why the art styles look so similar as well. There are many instances in an anime where a very popular panel from the manga will be adapted into motion and color. I think that's what manga fans such as myself live for. Levi versus the Beast Titan? Check. Denji becoming Chainsaw Man? Check. Saitama acting nonchalant? Check. Most of the time, it's a one-to-one adaptation of the manga. I can't stress enough how much we need this more in America. Someone please tell Marvel that we need a Wolverine Revenge animated series. It would go really hard. So let's go over what we learned today. Manga is much simpler of a medium than comics. You just have to start with volume 1. You also don't need to read any spin-offs or light novels. The main series will give you all you need. To see if you would like to read a certain manga or any manga at all, try anime, since anime usually is a one-to-one adaptation of manga. Do not overbuy or overread, and do your research. Okay, now you know all you need to know about manga as a medium. Oh yeah, and don't forget to read it right to left.